welcome back to a True Crime Guys podcast. Did you catch my wording there? That's because this is not a regular True Crime Guys show. Because we spent recording day this past Sunday with our mothers for Mother's Day. We don't regret it. No apologies, okay? But what we will do is force our other show on you, Strange and Unexplained. We thought, what better way to advertise for our new show than just throw it on them unexpectedly on our regular release day. Nah, for real, this is one of our favorite episodes on Pervis Payne. We hope you guys enjoy it. I'll see you on the other side. Pervis Payne is a 53-year-old black man with an intellectual disability, sitting on death row in Shelby, Tennessee, for the 1987 murder of a mother and her 2 children. However, Mr. Payne claims he was only assisting the injured victims and became the suspect through racial profiling and was painted as a vicious drug-using monster with a sexual bloodlust to fulfill, who in a drug-fueled state brutally attacked and killed the Christopher family. His execution has been stayed many times, and he is now attempting to present the court proof of his mental handicap. But on April 9th, 2021, a new date will be set for him to be put to death. Many people have come to Payne's aid, claiming there is evidence to prove his innocence. Is Pervis Payne a vicious murderer who deserves to be put to death? Or was he a bystander, wrongfully accused, and now paying the price for someone else's actions? Let's find out. I'm your host, Michael, and this is Strange and Unexplained. Cherise Christopher had just recently divorced her husband. She, along with 2 young children, 3-year-old Nicholas and 2-year-old Lacey, had moved in with Cherise's sister in Millington, Tennessee. The apartment had been rented after her sister's marriage suddenly ended, also around the same time as Cherise's. But the sister and her husband had been trying to mend things over the last few weeks and decided to give it another shot, so she moved out, leaving Cherise and the kids alone in the apartment. It was June 27th, 1987. Cherise and the kids had lived there for just over a year now, and they were finally starting to adjust to a normal way of life again. The Hiwassee apartment building contained 4 units, 2 upstairs and 2 down, with a hallway and staircase dividing the building down the middle. The Christopher family lived in one of the upstairs units. Directly beneath the Christopher's apartment lived the building's resident manager, Nancy Wilson. Beside Miss Wilson lived a young woman named Helen Truman. Her sister, Laura Pickard, was over visiting the day of the murders. Okay, y'all got all those names? Good. Get your notepad? Write it down. Okay, there's going to be a lot of stuff you're going to want to remember. Some small details in this case. It's really going to weigh whether you feel one way or the other. Okay, I think this is a very polarizing case. So, moving on. The last apartment unit, the upstairs one that sat adjacent to the Christophers, was occupied by a woman named Bobby Thomas. Bobby Thomas was not home at the time of the murders. In fact, she was visiting family in Arkansas, but was supposed to return later on that Saturday evening. Miss Thomas was dating a young man named Pervis Payne at the time, and Payne had stopped by several times that day while waiting for Bobby to return home. He was witnessed by the neighbors coming and going from the building several times and had even stopped and got water from another resident at one time. So let's look into Pervis Payne, shall we? Naturally, he was a suspect. And here's what Pervis Payne said about that day and the events that unfolded. He claims that he had gone over to Miss Thomas's apartment several times throughout the day to see if she had returned. When he returned around 3 p.m., as he was approaching the stairs in the hallway, a black man in a white Hawaiian print shirt came running past him and ran into the woods. The man apparently dropped a bunch of papers and some change on the ground as he ran past Pervis. So Pervis bent down, scooped it all up, and put it in his pocket. He then proceeded up the stairs to retrieve an overnight bag and a few beers that he had left at the door of Bobby Thomas's apartment when he visited earlier in the day. When he reached the top of the stairs, He heard a baby crying and someone faintly calling for help. As he turned the corner, he saw the front door to the Christophers' apartment was cracked open. He says he went over to the door and announced who he was and said that he was coming in. At that time, he pushed the door open and saw a disturbing scene. When he walked into the apartment, he saw Charisse on the kitchen floor, badly injured with a knife still sticking out of the side of her neck, and that her hand was on the knife trying to pull it out. He said her mouth was still moving, but the words had faded away. He walked over and knelt down beside her. He put his hand on top of hers, and he pulled the knife out. When he did, she reached and grabbed him and held on until she finally fell back against the wall, weak and fading fast. So naturally, Curtis Payne has already interjected himself into this situation, right? This explains a lot of the evidence found on him that a killer might have, right? Now we have blood from the victim. You've now touched the murder weapon. You've removed it from the victim's body, right? So the defense attorney had a question about this as well, and it seemed like a simple question. And I found the exchange typed up. So here is a reenactment of that exchange in court.
Can you explain why there's blood stains on your left leg?
Left leg?
Yes, sir.
Evidently, it probably it had to come from when she hit the wall, when she reached up and grabbed me.
When she hit the wall?
When I got ready to run up, when I got ready to vomit.
When she hit the wall, she got blood on you.
When she splashed, it was blood, a lot of blood on the floor.
She got blood on you when she hit the wall. Is that what you said?
She hit against the wall when she fell back.
Is that what you said, sir? That she got blood on you when she hit the wall?
I didn't say she got blood on me when she hit the wall.
Isn't that what you just said a moment ago, sir?
That's not what I said.
So yeah, did y'all get all that? I mean, he obviously explained what happened so clearly right there. All right? You guys got I'm just messing, guys. But that is a real back and forth between the prosecution and Pervis Payne in court. Yeah, I was as confused as you were, right? So he says at the time, after that altercation, after he pulled the knife out, he went to the phone and tried to call for help, but was in such a state of shock that he didn't know who to dial. God, I don't know. Should I call my mom? No, she won't be here. Should I call her mom? Shit, I don't know her mom. Fuck. God, if there's just some number I could call. But he talked about how Charisse just stared at him and he couldn't think. All he could think was get help. It was as if no numbers would come to him, as if all the ones he knew now twisted all together in his head. He was scared, and at that second, he felt himself about to vomit. So he hung up the phone and ran over to the kitchen sink and drank water from the tap. Pervis turned and saw the children. He walked over and checked on little Lacey, but he could tell that she was already gone. He then noticed that Nicholas was still alive. He walked over to him and told him that he was going to find help. He then turned and grabbed his overnight bag, which he had dropped at the front door when he walked in. And right then, he looked up and saw the police car enter the parking lot of the apartment complex. He didn't have to look in a mirror to know that as a black man, now covered in blood, he was definitely going to get blamed for this. He says at the time he panicked and thought only about getting out of there. So he walked down the stairs toward the parking lot, encountering the officer at the bottom of the stairs. The officer spoke to him, asking him what was wrong. And then Pervis hit the officer with his bag and ran towards the woods. He was able to outrun the officer and went to an ex-girlfriend's house. He was found hiding in the attic later that same day. When he was found, he did not have the overnight bag with him, and he had no shirt on. He claims he spilled a beer in the bag when he ran from the officer, and that a lot of the contents of the bag fell out as he was running anyway, so he just threw it away. Understandably, A lot of Pervis's story does not make sense, but his family claims that is because Mr. Payne lives with an intellectual disability. He is not quick to learn and often got fired from jobs because he couldn't remember basic procedures. And as he has been tested many times to confirm this. Whenever administered an IQ test, his scores were verbal 78 and performance 82. A 75 or lower is considered mental retardation. So doctors classified him as intellectually disabled. Whenever Pervis was picked up, he was not tested for drugs or alcohol, but police said he appeared to be under the influence of something. He had dilated pupils, a very rapid heart rate, and was foaming saliva at the mouth, and that he also appeared, quote, very nervous. I bet he just got arrested. When he was found, he told the police, quote, I ain't killed no woman. He knew his worst fear was now a reality. Now, as you could imagine, because I'm sure that you guys have heard a crime story or two, the prosecution told a much different story. They claim Pervis Payne had been riding around all day with a friend scoring cocaine and looking at Playboy magazines. And when he returned to Miss Thomas's apartment and she was not there, that he went to Sharice's door. They reason it was to get a glass of water, as he did earlier in the day with one of the other residents. When she answered the door, she let Pervis in, as she knew who he was. Once inside, he made sexual advances toward her, but she refused and shot him down. Since he was intoxicated, he got angry and flew into a rage and attempted to rape her, but she fought back, so he stabbed her repeatedly. In fact, Sharice Christopher sustained 42 stab wounds, and she also had 42 defensive wounds. She literally fought against every single strike. Every defensive wound and stab wound was accounted for, 42 each. She was alive the whole time. A used tampon was found by her, and her shorts appeared to have been pushed up, leading many to believe that this was his original motive. They said Pervis then turned his attention to Lacey and Nicholas. He stabbed 2-year-old Lacey 9 times, and Nicholas was also stabbed multiple times, with one of his wounds going all the way through his abdomen and coming out his back. Then Pervis went into the bathroom, where he wiped blood off on towels and paper towels found in the trash. And as the first officer on the scene, Officer Wilson, described, he pulled up and saw a large black man through the front window of the apartment, and that the disturbance had been reported at. And he noticed that man bend down, pick something up, and then he came out and down the stairs. All that matches up, huh? At this time, Officer Wilson approached him and did notice the blood on his shirt, and said he even looked like he was sweating blood, but thought that he had just gotten in a fight, as the call was just about screams and fighting in the apartment. He figured Pervis was covered in his own blood. He said then Pervis struck him with the bag and took off. He pursued him, but then realized when he was pulling away that Pervis was not injured, which means something else went down in the apartment. When he went as far as he could with Pervis, he decided to radio his whereabouts, and he turned and ran towards the apartment, entering into the carnage left by some heartless killer. Sharice and Lacey were both gone by the time Officer Wilson entered the door of the small Tennessee apartment. Lacey was found with Pervis's baseball cap on her arm. Her arm had gone through the hole in the back of the cap where you adjust it, and it was on her forearm. Strange. But little Nicholas lay fighting for every breath on the other side of the room. He was quickly rushed to a nearby children's hospital and underwent several surgeries, but was able to make a full recovery. Police then followed a blood trail that led them to the home of Pervis's ex-girlfriend, and he was found hiding in the attic. When police searched him, he had a small bag with white residue, which tested positive as cocaine. He also had a wrapper and a cap for a syringe. This is the papers Pervis claims the man dropped that came out of the Christopher's apartment. He also lost his shoes and shirt along his route, and when arrested was only wearing his jeans and gold watch. Police claim they noticed scratch marks across his chest, but again failed to follow procedures, and there are no photos. Great. Pervis claims that what they saw were not scratches. They were actually stretch marks on his chest that he has from lifting weights. His other clothes were eventually located in a nearby dumpster in the weekend bag. His white shirt was covered in blood. Okay, so now that we have all that he said, she said, mixed in with the little facts and whatnot here and there, let's get into some time frames and also some witness statements. Okay, these are very important. Now, the time frame that was given is that the first scream was heard at 3:10 p.m., and the first officer arrived on scene at 3:23 p.m. Nancy Wilson, the building manager who lived beneath Charisse, heard Charisse scream and some commotion in her apartment, and she said it went on for a minute and then stopped, just momentarily, before growing even louder than before. She walked out her back door and looked up the stairs that led to Charisse's apartment and could hear her screaming. She decided against going up for herself and instead ran inside and called the police. She was told by the operator to go into the bathroom and lock the door and wait for help to arrive. She did as she was told. And while in the bathroom, she listened carefully to what was going on upstairs. She said after the commotion died down and all the screaming stopped, she heard someone go into the bathroom and turn on the water. Pervis claims he never went into the bathroom, only to the kitchen sink. Very important. Then, shortly after the water cut off, she heard the front door slam, and then the police arrived. Laura Pickard, who had been visiting her sister, I mentioned her earlier in the show when you should have been writing down all those names. See, I told you should have. But she had been visiting her sister in the other downstairs apartment, and she had witnessed a black arm wearing a gold watch reach up and grab the door and slam it shut several times. That is when she saw Miss Wilson come out, but neither of them saw the person or could give a description, only that it was a black man's arm with a gold watch. Blood was collected from everything and tested. The blood found on Pervis matched that of all three victims, which he said he got on him when he attempted to help them. There is DNA of an unknown male that was also found. It has never been tested. Payne's fingerprints were on cans of malt liquor in the apartment. His DNA was found on a washcloth in the bathroom. Awkward. And his property was left at the scene of the crime. The DNA evidence that belongs to another unknown male was found on the knife. So, yikes. Yes, the very knife used to kill Charisse. However, when it was tested, it was found to be too degraded to convict anyone else, but did not match Pervis. So, my question on that is, what was the DNA? Was it a piece of hair? Was it a skin cell? Was it blood? Was it sweat? Semen? What the hell was it? It just got so many questions. If it was just a hair of another male or something, that could have gotten on there from the apartment floor or something and got stuck to it from the blood. You see what I mean? There's so many things that could have gotten attached to this knife. It's also important to mention that there's no indication of who this knife actually belongs to. There's no ownership of the knife. Not sure if it was in Charisse's apartment already or if the killer brought it with him. There are several procedures that were not followed correctly in this case, which leaves room for a lot of speculation, which is why I'm covering it. Y'all know how it is. For instance, the evidence that was in Pervis's pocket was withheld for a year before it was presented to the defense. Yikes. And the fact that Payne was not administered a drug or breathalyzer test upon arrest. I know, it's a lot of information. What does it all mean, right? Well, all in all, Charisse sustained 42 wounds, 13 of which were fatal themselves. Lacey had a total of 9, One struck her aorta, and one had been rapidly fatal. Nicholas sustained multiple wounds and lost his mother and sister that day. Pervis Payne was found guilty on 2 counts of murder, for which he was given the death penalty in both. He was also found guilty of attempted murder against Nicholas and given an additional 30 years. Pervis's family is now fighting to get him off death row, as it is considered unconstitutional for a person with an intellectual disability to be on death row. However, this law was not passed until after Pervis was convicted. It was applied later, retrospectively, but there are no procedures at this time that will allow Pervis to present his case to the court in order to overturn his sentence, which means he had been confirmed as mentally disabled, but he has no way of telling the court about it. There are just literally no rules around it right now. So did Pervis kill Charisse and Lacey and attempt to kill Nicholas? Or was he really trying to help? Did police wrongfully arrest a Good Samaritan? And even if he was not just a Good Samaritan, if he did this crime, is it unconstitutional still to put him to death with a mental disability? What do I think? Let me get into it, okay? This is pure speculation here. We are in the speculation part of the show. I think he did it. Here's why. Number 1, the beers that were found in the office, the malt liquor. It was a known fact that he bought malt liquor before going to the apartment complex. And allegedly he left them in, or he had them sitting beside or in the bag that he carried with him that was set outside of his girlfriend's apartment. Well, it's at the time where he's saying that he's going back to get that bag and the malt liquors that he hears the commotion, right? He hears Charisse, so that means the commotion already happened. It's already over, right? So he happens upon this crime scene. He goes in, he does this, whatever. He drops his bag at the door. He helps, he tries to help, whatever. He does his whole story. He grabs his bag, walks out, hits the officer with the bag. What about the malt liquors? Okay, the malt liquors were found in the apartment with his fingerprints on them. He was there for a while. Multiple malt liquors were found with his fingerprints on them. Okay, and then also 2 witnesses witnessed a black man's arm reach and shut the door to the apartment of Charisse's. And he had a gold watch. He was wearing a gold watch and no shirt when they found him. Also, the activity that the manager heard in the bathroom, right? The manager heard water running in the bathroom, someone washing up. And then they find Pervis's DNA on the towel in the bathroom when he is adamant about not going to the bathroom. Adamant about it. Okay? Now, there is one other scenario that could possibly have happened. This friend that Pervis was riding around with, scoring cocaine, whatnot, either way, somebody at that apartment had cocaine on him, right? Whether Pervis picked up somebody's bag, whatever, or whatever happened. Okay, this gentleman that he was riding around with that day, what about him? He was there when Pervis got back to the apartment. You think he just dropped him off and left? Or you think they hung out maybe at the apartment complex a little bit, maybe went in and talked to Charisse for a little bit, maybe things got heated? I mean, her tampon was removed and laid beside her on the floor, and her shorts were pushed up. It was obvious something was happening there. The defensive wounds all over her. The only argument I'm willing to hear right now is the DNA on the knife. The DNA on the knife is suspicious. What the hell is going on with that? Okay, there's male DNA on the knife. It needs to be tested. We need to find out how it got there. Now, it could be as simple as it's a friend of Pervis's or someone else owned the knife and could have cut their finger on the knife and then loaned it to Pervis or Charisse, and it was at their apartment, or maybe it was at Charisse's apartment already. Who knows? Maybe Pervis got it from his buddy that he was riding around with. Who knows? But guys, if Pervis didn't do it, god damn, who did it? And why did nobody else see anything? Nobody saw any other people running from the scene? Really? I don't know. It just strikes me as very, very odd. Like I said, the malt liquor, the beers that had his fingerprints on them in the apartment was just like the nail in the coffin for me. I'm like, how did those get there? What do you do? Try to help him and then was like, oh shit, I'm going to sit here and drink like 3 beers while I calm down. Nah, he was there already. He was hanging out at the apartment already. All right, now there is one thing worth mentioning, and I saw it in one video, and I will link it down in the sources below this, and I'll try to note it in some way that you know. But this is done on YouTube. It's a woman in Tennessee. I can't remember the channel, like I said. I only watched it one time. But she had this one bit of information from a witness, a Mr. Williams is all she would call him, Mr. Williams. Apparently, he was at the complex that day or something, around the area somehow. I don't know. But this quote-unquote Mr. Williams. Now, this lady lives in the Tennessee area. She lives in this area, I guess. So maybe she was able to go to the complex or maybe interview people involved. I don't know. Okay. But as far as court documents were found and all this guy was not interviewed in court. He was not a witness in court, as far as I can find. I couldn't find anything with a Mr. Williams. Okay. But she claims that this Mr. Williams said that he saw another black man that was not Pervis Payne because he knew who Pervis Payne was, and he also knew this other black man. Okay? So he knew who both of them were distinctively. I guess this is important for his testimony. Very important. So this other black man ran out, covered in blood, ran to his car, and drove off. And then minutes later, he sees Pervis Payne come out, get in his car, and drive off. Okay? Now this Mr. Williams, also stated that Charisse sold cocaine for a local drug dealer in town. And this was known. And he knew that because he himself had bought cocaine from her and had done cocaine with her. So, like I said, this is one testimony. Let me tell you guys where I found it. I found it on the YouTube channel called Amanda Kitchen's Innocence Investigation. And she has a video that she posted on October 12th of last year, 2020, called Innocence Investigation, Pervis Payne, Part 1. And she works in local law enforcement, and she also lives in Tennessee. So she does have more access to this case. So I'm interested to see what else she covers. But she has a 22-minute video, Part 1, on Pervis Payne that is excellent. It was a great study source for this. But again, that information about Mr. Williams, that testimony, that's huge. I mean, that's huge because that just makes more sense. Honestly, that someone else was there, that makes more sense to me. That 2 people were there. And who was this guy he was driving around with? I'm serious. That guy needs to be looked into. But, of course, if that guy is connected and if Pervis witnessed this man killing this family and these children, do you really think he wants to rat on him in prison? I don't think so. I don't think so. So something is not right in that situation. Either way, but even if Pervis was there, right? You're an accessory to the crime. That's why I think, regardless, he did it. He's there. Whether he had remorse and wanted to stop it, maybe did something to stop it, maybe just showed up a little bit late. Maybe he was standing outside while this guy went inside to take care of something and then he ran in. Maybe he attacked while Pervis was in the bathroom. I don't know. But that story makes the most sense. And I said all that to say this. I do not think Pervis Payne should be put to death. It's just not that solid of a case still. He should not be put to death. Even if he stood there in terror as this man killed these people, with his mental disabilities, he should not be put to death. I think he should get life. And coincidentally, that is exactly what his legal team is looking for in this appeal. They're not talking about exoneration. If you check out the terminology, they're not talking about exonerating him. They're not trying to get him released. They just want his sentence transferred to life. That he shouldn't be killed. And I agree with that 100%. Pervis Payne does not deserve to die for this. Regardless of the reasoning, regardless of what happened that day, I just don't think he deserves to die. Life, yes. For the accessory, for the crime, for being there, he was definitely very close to this crime somehow. All right, well, that's enough of me. It's enough of me rambling. Let's check in with Lauren, guys. Let's see what he thinks in this week's Lauren Synopsis. It's time for Lauren. It's time for Lauren Synopsis. Breaking down the case like cardboard boxes. It's time for Lauren. It's time for Lauren Synopsis. Breaking down the case like cardboard boxes. It's time for Lauren. It's time for Lauren Synopsis. Breaking down the case like cardboard boxes.
What's up, people? Lauren here to give my thoughts on this week's Strange and Unexplained, the horrific murder of Cherise and Lacey Christopher and the attempted murder of young Nicholas Christopher in June of 1987 in Tennessee, and subsequent potential wrongful conviction of 20-year-old Pervis Payne, who was seen at the crime scene, actually across the hall at his girlfriend's apartment, covered in blood, immediately following the brutal stabbings of this family. Now, Pervis, as I said, was dating a girl across the hall, and he claims that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, that a man had run out of the apartment past him, and out of curiosity, he wandered into the apartment the man had run out of, and found this family basically butchered. Young Nicholas, who was 3 years old at the time, would survive miraculously, being stabbed many times. Cherise would have been stabbed a total of, I think, 84 times, but it was 42 stabbings through defensive wounds that multiplied. And young Lacey, who was a 2-year-old girl, died quickly at the scene. Now, Pervis Payne would be convicted of these murders, and a lot of people say that it was due to the fact that he was a black man and this was a white family, and this is Tennessee in the 80s, and there was still a lot of racial bias going on, and they painted him to be a young drug-induced, sex-starved, basically deviant. He was found. When the police arrived, his story is that he was afraid. He saw a white cop pull up. He was covered in the victim's blood. He had touched the knife because when he went in, Cherise had a knife sticking out of her neck, and he claims he pulled it out in order to try and help her. He then panicked when he saw the white police officer, threw his bag at the police officer, and fled the scene. He was later found in an attic of a home. And supposedly he had drugs in his pocket when he was found in the attic. I found that a little bit fishy. It's like, wouldn't you ditch the drugs if you did in fact have them? It's just a little convenient that there's this baggie, this perfect baggie with like a needle and cocaine and everything in it. A little bit suspect. However, there is no denying that there's an overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence that paints Pervis Payne to be the perpetrator of this crime. I mean, his fingerprints were all over the apartment. There was unopened cans of malt liquor inside the apartment sitting on a table, as well as an empty can outside of the apartment. the victim's blood soaked into his clothes, and his fingerprints as well as his DNA were on the murder weapon, the knife that was found at the scene. Now, later on, there would be an unknown male's DNA as well on the handle of the knife. And that DNA would never, it was too, by the time they tested it, there's so many frustrating things about this. I get that it was 87 and the DNA testing was very rudimentary at best. However, they hold on to the DNA, and why did they not test it over the years as DNA progressed? They waited and waited until the DNA had deteriorated to the point where they couldn't match it to anyone. They just knew it was an unknown male. That would definitely have been helpful to try and match that to someone else. Maybe this person has a criminal record, and in a perfect world, you could have tracked down this person and potentially gotten a confession if someone else did this. Now, let's not forget, after digging in, I did find articles in which young Nicholas Christopher, the 3-year-old boy who was stabbed many times by the perpetrator who killed his mom and younger sister, he's alive, and he's in his 30s now, and he still to this day claims that Pervis Payne was the person who killed his little sister and his mom. And even when he was 3 at the time, right after the murders, there's a story that I believe he was sitting with his aunt, and the news was reporting on this crime, and he saw Pervis Payne's picture go up on the TV and said that that's the man that killed my mom and sister. Now he's 3, and I understand most of us don't remember anything that happened when we were 3, but I think in this circumstance, when you're that young and something this dramatic happens, there's certain things you do that stick out in your memory when you're young, like big events. This is one of those events where your sister and your mom are killed in front of you and you're nearly killed. I'm pretty sure the face of this person would be burned into your skull. I'm honestly somewhere near 50-50 on this, whether Pervis did this or not. There's some things that really bother me as far as him being convicted that, this stand out, like his mother following his arrest, asked the police to drug test him because he was never known to do any drugs or alcohol. According to his family, according to his girlfriend, he was a very borderline straight edge guy. He was known as a great family man, like his girlfriend's kids. He was apparently a great figure in their life, and somebody who didn't get into trouble. And like I said, didn't do drugs, didn't do alcohol. So they were not believing the story. The police were saying that he was high on drugs, looking at porno magazines and whatnot when he perpetrated this crime. And when the mother asked for them to drug test him, from what I've heard, the police refused. Why would you refuse that? Because it doesn't go with your narrative? You have nothing to lose by testing it. If you want to know the truth, if you want to know who really did this, instead of potentially framing a person because they were there. It's a tragedy if Pervis's story is true. It's an absolute tragedy. It makes me think of the Green Mile when John Coffey stumbles upon this unbelievable crime perpetrated against those 2 little girls by an evil man, and he just happens to, be the wrong place at the wrong time, holding these 2 young girls. And obviously, we know how that goes if you've seen the movie or read the book. And as far as other things that bothered me, the evidence getting lost, the DNA not being tested until it's no good anymore, things like that are just all too convenient. And it almost seems like they either know they made a mistake or or they don't care anymore. It's just like, why turn around time now? It's too late. And I understand that, he should be already dead right now, according to the system, but he did get a reprieve. He was scheduled to be killed in December of 2020, and now it's coming up on us quick, April of 2021, and there's a lot of petitions going around to save him from being killed. And he has a very low IQ. He's had learning disabilities his whole life, and I'm not sure the death penalty should have ever been on the table to begin with, considering he had no prior record and he has proven learning disabilities. Like, supposedly couldn't eat on his own until he was 5 years old. So I'm not sure this is a person that should have been convicted of the death penalty, even if he had done it. So, yeah, this is a tough one. Most of what you hear, I know it's gotten popular on TikTok, this case, people trying to save his life and claim his innocence. I don't know how much they've done, or they've seen a TikTok video that's, a minute or less long. I hope most of these people are diving in and seeing both sides, not just because most of what you find online, it only talks about the things that make Pervis look innocent. There are a lot of things that make him look guilty as well. I'm not convinced either way. I didn't sit on the trial. I'm sure there's so much more that we would have learned if you were, on the jury. There's always so much more than you can find on the internet. So it's a tough one. This one's a tough one because it was such a brutal, heinous, unnecessary crime. An absolute monster perpetrated this. Was it Pervis? I'm not 100% convinced. Like I said, I think I could only really make that determination if I sat on the jury, because so much of what's out there on the internet, it's hard to you get either the court papers, or you get one side or the other, the guilty side or the non-guilty side. You get very few. There's no gray area, when looking at it online. So I can see how this potentially could have been someone else. I heard her ex-boyfriend was technically supposed to be locked up, but he had free reign to leave, and that would be the perfect time to commit something like this. If you wanted to kill your ex and your kids, for instance, what better time to do it than when you have a built-in alibi in the system, and then you happen to find a black man standing outside the apartment. That'd be even better. It'd be like, oh well, I can frame this guy. He's standing here. So I can definitely see both sides. I could see a world where Pervis did do this. And I can also see a world where he was just like I said, really, really unlucky timing, and is innocent, and that would be just an absolute tragedy. So I'm not done digging into this one. I want to know the truth, because his life is on the line within a month, potentially. So if I read more and I'm convinced of his innocence, I will be signing whatever online petition I can. But I'm not going to lie, I crammed on this one to study, to record this synopsis for you guys. And I read as much as I could today. But I need to dig deeper into what really was presented at trial, as far as the prosecutors. What more was there other than circumstantial evidence? I know there's DNA evidence, but there was also this unknown male. And Pervis doesn't deny being there and touching things. And there's reason for his DNA to be in there according to his story. So it's really tough. It's a tough one. Because if he did it, this heinous crime, it's hard to have sympathy. It is. Even with his low IQ, it's hard to have sympathy. So that's my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed it. See you next week.
All right, Lauren, thank you very much for that excellent synopsis. Look at this guy. He crams, right? He says he crams. Oh, I just read a little bit and got more information than Michael. No big fucking deal. No, I'm just kidding. But the information on Nicholas now, in his 30s, very interesting. The fact that he still is convinced that Pervis Payne did this murder, right? But then again, we're looking at the testimony of a 3-year-old. If Pervis Payne was just there, he could have easily confused his face with someone else's face, put him in a situation he wasn't in. That's very easy to do, especially with all the speculation and all the media attention that this case has received, right? Depending on what news articles and what stories, what videos Nicholas is watching about this very case. Right? Because like Lauren said, I don't think I have ever studied a case with more divisive information. You pull up one article and you're like, within seconds, you're like, okay, they think he's innocent. Or you pull up another one and within seconds, you're like, okay, you guys just are obviously just think he's guilty. Like immediately. And like Lauren said, this crazy outpour in support of his innocence, it just seems too early. It seems too early. Like Lauren said, if This is a case that I'm following very closely as well. And if more information comes out and there's just one thing, just that one piece of information that it's just like, oh, it couldn't have been Pervis, right? Then I think he needs to be completely exonerated and he needs to receive some sort of payment. But at the very least, I think regardless of the outcome of this story, I think Pervis Payne needs to have life in prison. At the very least, they should at least give him life in prison instead of the death penalty. That's just my opinion. And guys, I'm very interested to hear you guys' opinion on this case, and also you guys be on the lookout as well, because we constantly got our noses in other things and other cases and true crime, and we're likely to come across it. But if you guys see any updates or any new information, please send them to me. And if we find that we can help this man from this tragedy, and it turns out that he is innocent, then we should do all that we can. Having the knowledge that we have now, we have the responsibility, right? All right, guys. I want to thank all of you for all that you do to support the Strange and Unexplained podcast and True Crime Guys Productions and all that we put out. The number one way to help this show, of course, you guys know, is Patreon. Patreon.com/SandU podcast. For just $3 a month, you guys get early access to these free episodes and also access to another show that I do called Strange Shorts, and that is released every Monday. And at the $5 tier, you also get Strange and Unexplained exclusive Patreon sticker. Is a 3x3 square with the Strange and Unexplained logo on it, but it's at nighttime. Whoa. Weird stuff happens at night, right? I don't know. That's the idea I was going with, I guess. But also, if you join Patreon now, you'll already be on there and you'll already be a Patreon veteran knowing how everything works. And in a few months, when Sandu Stories goes exclusively to Patreon, you won't feel left out anymore, right? Because if you guys don't know, last week's episode, Sandu Stories, Chapter 1, that is a new chapter in the Sandu podcast saga, okay? And those Sandu stories will be released every 4 weeks, so once a month. A new Sandu story will come out once a month, and that will be exclusively on Patreon at the $5 tier. So if you guys are interested in that, I highly suggest you get in on the Patreon game. Guys, for $5 a month, come on. It's cheaper than your Starbucks coffee, right? But if you can't, I totally understand. And I appreciate your support. I appreciate your downloads. I appreciate you guys going and leaving reviews, whether it's on iTunes or Apple Podcast or Stitcher. Where else can you leave reviews? Not that many places anymore. You can't leave reviews on Spotify, where it seems like everyone's going to, which I listen on Spotify. I love Spotify. It's probably the least glitchy. But Spotify doesn't do reviews. So odd. I guess reviews don't matter. Anyways, I like to read them. So if you guys want to leave a review, you want to get a cool shout out, that's a good way to do it. Or if you want to leave a case suggestion and guarantee that I not only get it, but I will read it on air. So I can't really deny it. So best way to give a case suggestion, leave a review. All right, guys. Well, this one has been, I think, long enough. I hope you guys are confused and morally conflicted, right? All right, guys, we'll see you next week with a new Strange and Unexplained. Remember, be strange, just don't be strangers. All right, guys. That's going to just about do it. Hope you guys enjoyed that little sneak peek into Strange and Unexplained if you haven't checked it out already, because I'm sure most of you have not. Maybe you're still making your way through the True Crime Guys catalog. No problem. No problem. Sandu will be there when you are ready. All right. Let's get to a little bit of housekeeping, because just because this isn't a regular episode doesn't mean I ain't got shit to tell y'all. Like, number one, Oh My Gaia. Why are you not using Oh My Gaia? Guys, like, Oh My Gaia, seriously. Let's use it, Okay? Oh My Gaia is an innovative, all-natural deodorant, fragrance, and beard oil company specializing in paraben and aluminum-free products. That's the key right there. Their innovative line of deodorants inhibit the growth of odor-causing bacteria while maintaining effectiveness. At Oh My Gaia, they use only all-natural, paraben, and aluminum-free organic ingredients. And guys, there's tons of scents to choose from regardless of the vibe you're going for. From vanilla, cherry almond, sandalwood, lavender, lemongrass, Egyptian musk, coconut, dreamsicle, leather, lumberjack, honeysuckle, fireside, bergamot, amber. We have our very own scent, True Crime Pine. I mean, come on. Everybody knows that, right? Barbershop, another good one. There's new scents are being added all the time, guys. And you need to go check these out at ohmygaia.com. And because you guys are True Crime Guys listeners, you can use the word creeper, CREEPER, for 15% off your order at shop_ohmygaia on Instagram or ohmygaia.com. That's ohmygaia.com. All right. And I got one more thing I want to tell you guys about. We'll save the review shout outs and whatnot for the regular programming, the regular shenanigans, which we will get back to next week. Promise you. Next Wednesday, a regular old True Crime Guys episode, and we'll be breaking down some case like cardboard boxes. You guys know what I'm talking about. But this week, I want to tell you guys about our YouTube channel. If you like to listen on YouTube, you're in luck now. We do have a YouTube channel. Now, if you search True Crime Guys on YouTube, will you find it? Probably not. You will find imposter channels. So look for our TV logo. The new TV logo in the desert is associated with all of our official branding. And there's even a banner on the YouTube page that says the official YouTube page. So it's kind of hard to fuck it up. But that's on YouTube. You guys can find a link to that YouTube or anything True Crime Guys on our Instagram account at True Crime Guys. Follow us on Instagram, guys, and we have a link right there in our bio to our link tree. And there's everything from YouTube to Patreon to merch to Strange and Unexplained to everything that we have to offer. Okay? Is all on the link tree right there. So I would appreciate it if you guys are YouTube listeners. Go give us a subscribe. Smash that subscribe button, as YouTubers like to say. Right? That is kind of fun to say. Go smash that. I'm just kidding. All right, guys. We'll see you next week with a new crazy crime case. I know what it is, but you guys don't. I can't tell you. It's Lauren's policy. I'm sorry. It's not mine. He likes to keep it a surprise. All right? All right, guys. We'll see you next week. Keep creeping.
True Crime Guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder, get murder, get murder. True Crime Guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you. Sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army. We out here making murder charming.